We are discussing interests in real estate. And really what we've learned here that you read and that we're going to review is when someone takes title to a property and they're the owner, there is a condition or a chance that there might be a situation where someone else dictates how they use the property or has some form of interest in the property, but it doesn't rise to the actual possession of the property. So some other entity has interest in how it's used or they use it. But again, it doesn't rise to the level of actual ownership and possession. Okay, that is called an encumbrance. It's a type of interest that runs with the land. What does run with the land mean? Well, the title of it or the name of that is an appurtenance. And an appurtenance that runs with the land means that it transfers with the property from person to person unless it's resolved. And I'll show you here a few examples of what that means. But again, it does not rise to the level of possession, but it does give another party some degree of control. This topic is going to cover, the big word is going to be encumbrances. Encumbrances is this interest that runs with the land, and there are 4 categories of it. The first one is an easement. The second is an encroachment. Third is a deed restriction. Fourth is a lien. An easement is where we'll start. An easement gives another party the right to use the property for a specific use. Oftentimes in real estate, we see it as a driveway. So for example, on this little graphic, we've got this road here to the left, and then we've got 2 homes. But in order for this second property over here to the right to get to their house, they've got to use this driveway of their neighbor in order to hop onto their property. So this is called an easement appurtenant, where we're using their driveway, and that's it. We're not using their pool. We're not running all over their yard playing soccer. Their lot is still their lot. Their property is still their property. We just, according to the title, can just use this driveway and this driveway alone in order to hop onto our own driveway and get access to our property. Why would you do this? Well, we cannot have properties be landlocked. People have the right to gain access to their property. But sometimes the lay of the land does not make it easy to put in a drive. Maybe you've got right here on the bottom trees that present it, or a deep ravine or a creek that doesn't allow, if there are a road over here going east and west, for them to just create a driveway straight through. So the access point literally is over here. We'll call this to the left here on the west. Okay. Now, the reason that this is, first of all, it's an easement, but it also runs with the land or as an appurtenance, is this right for this house to the right to gain access to their property with their neighbor's driveway, that stays with the property every time it's bought and sold. So when this homeowner here on the right sells their property to a new owner, that new owner does not have to go to house on the left, say, can we still use your driveway? It's a part of the title. It runs with the land. Okay. Another type of easement I'm going to point out to you that I think is good for your career and the exam is an easement and gross. This is going to be an easement involving anything with utilities. So every once in a while, we've got 2 yards that back to each other. And there's maybe a storm drainage system that meets where those backyards, those lot lines touch with the neighbors. Maybe there's some sort of a drain system. Whoever needs to manage that storm sewer, probably the city, has got an easement that allows them to come on the properties to specifically cater, fix, examine whatever needs to be done with that storm drainage, which means if you own those properties, it's probably going to affect how or if you even can put up a fence, because again, we've got to allow the city to come in and get access. A lot of people bring up wind turbines in this example, and a wind turbine, most of them have some sort of a land lease with the landowner to have the wind turbine there, or maybe a cell phone tower. And then there's probably some sort of an easement that allows them to actually pull in and walk to the wind turbine or the cell phone tower to service it. So there's probably a couple of things happening there. Okay, that's the idea around an easement. And again, an easement stays in place with every sale and transaction unless there's no need for it. It's been abandoned for a lengthy period of time. Each state law is going to have a length of time around that. Or when property owner owns both parcels. So back to our graphic here. If the right property owner buys the left and owns both, obviously owns both, there's no reason for an easement. Okay. Next up is an encroachment. And this is when we've got a neighboring property owner's fixture or permanent property that illegally creeps over to the neighbor's property. This oftentimes happens with fences, trees that have been planted, or maybe driveways where the actual survey of the property and the lot lines were not properly respected or inspected to know where they were in the first place. If this is not corrected over time, it will become an easement by prescription. Otherwise, right when it happens, the property owner needs to notify of the encroachment to have it correct. Up next is a deed restriction. A deed restriction is a part of a deed. So you've got the deed, that's the physical proof of who owns it. And then you've got these restrictions on how the parcel of land can be used. Typically, these deed restrictions are created by a developer who came in and bought the land, put in the roads, the streets, electricity, sewer lines, water lines, electricity again, maybe fiber optics for internet. They break it down into parcels, and then they start selling those to builders to actually build properties. So a developer may have created deed restrictions or a homeowners association, like in the circumstance of a condominium or townhome. Let's talk about the developer. The developer may put together deed restrictions on how the property is used. It's got to have a residential dwelling with a minimum of 1,400 square feet. The exterior must have a certain percentage with stone on it, and you must plant 2 types of maple trees. The reason a developer will do that is because they're looking for conformity in their development. They don't want a mini mansion built and then somebody come in and build a tiny house. That would ruin probably the mini McMansion's value. And it maybe wouldn't do anything to help the tiny house either. Conformity actually helps the neighborhood maintain its value. So maybe a developer wants control of that. So as they're selling lots, they know someone's not going to come in and put up something that would ruin other people's value. Paint their house retina burning orange, for example. That may deter other people wanting to buy in that development. And they can be very particular, even more particular than the things I listed. A homeowners association is also going to talk about how the property can be used. Can homeowners park in the guest parking? Is there guest parking? I guess I should back that up. Are pets allowed? If they are allowed, how many, what type, and how big? All of those are part of a deed restriction. They are not about building codes and safety of how the property is built, but mainly architecture and usage. It does not include people, but it does follow the property from one owner to another. Next up is a lien. And a lien is absolutely something that you will work with in your career. A lien is a charge against a property for the security that someone will repay a debt. Now, not all liens are encumbrances. Only encumbrances that attach specifically to that address are actually an encroachment. The most common type of lien that you will see in your career will most likely be a mortgage lien. So when someone buys a property and they take out a loan from a bank, a mortgage lien is filed against a property. And that lets the world know that you owe them repayment of that loan in order to own this property free and clear with no title defects. It also holds the homeowner accountable that if they repay the loan, the bank will take it back through a process again called foreclosure. Okay. So liens can be general or specific. A lien that is specific to that address is actually an encumbrance. Now let's dive in to some liens though. There's different categories for these liens. And I think for the exam, what you primarily need to know is whether it is specific or general to the property. Again, specific is going to be address. General is just going to be something that you incur by your lifestyle. Specific encumbrances are going to be a mortgage lien. It's for that specific address. A mechanics lien, that's going to be specifically for a property address. And a mechanics lien happens anytime, let's say somebody has a contractor do work and then they don't pay them for their work. So I put on a $10,000 new roof and I didn't pay the bill. I didn't agree with something maybe that the contractor charged me. He could file a lien against my property as a way to secure that I will repay my debt to him. That's a type of mechanics lien. Utilities lien happens when we don't pay our gas, electric, or water. A bail bond lien can happen when you maybe go to pop somebody out of jail. You're going to use the equity in your home as security for that bail bond loan. This becomes a lien on the property specific. So that's a new one. You might want to think through that the next time you talk to your bail bondsman. Non-encumbrance liens or general liens is going to be like a judgment. And while this does affect title to the property, it does not rise to the level of an encumbrance. That's a great test question. A judgment is a lien, but because it's general, it does not rise to the level of an encumbrance. What's a judgment? This is anytime you go to court and there's a decision made that you owe money to someone, you will have a judgment filed against you. Maybe you ran up that Chase credit card again. It's got a $30,000 balance on it. You don't pay it. Chase takes you to court. They say, yes, you owe us 30, but we'll take 20. We just want the money. The judge says, great, I agree with that. They file a judgment against you. Two other types of common judgments are going to be alimony or child support. And when I say alimony, that could be a monthly payment to an ex-spouse, or it could be a flat fee, a flat amount. But divorces, there's often a judgment where we award someone money. One party in the divorce maybe gets awarded $10,000 to help repay credit card debt. And the other big one is going to be child support. An estate tax lien would be inheritance tax. A franchise lien would be maybe you own a franchise of a company like a McDonald's, and you don't pay the franchise fees to McDonald's corporate, or an IRS tax lien. These are general. And again, you get those just by you being you. It's not property specific. So I hope this was a helpful review. Up next, we have descriptions in land.